This is the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast, brought to you by ThankFlip GAMSAT. We're here to teach you how to smash the GAMSAT, get into medicine, and become a flippin' great doctor.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast by ThankFlip GAMSAT. This is Dr. Tom here, founder and CEO of ThankFlip, and today we've got a unique session for two reasons. Number one is we're joined by our amazing head tutor, Urvi. Welcome, Urvi.
Thanks, Tom.
And we're also we're going to be doing a lot of speculation. We're talking about a really interesting topic. But before we get into that, I just want to introduce you guys to Urvi. So Urvi joined us, 4 years ago, almost now, at ThankFlip. Yeah. Feels like a long time ago, but then also not like a long time ago. It's flown past. Urvi is a University of Melbourne medical student. She's fourth year now. She has been a tutor with us and the head tutor for 4 years now. And she's brilliant at Section 3 and the essays and planning and supporting our students and kicking butt when required and just making sure that everyone's on the right track and heading in the right direction. And it's been amazing having her on board. And so I wanted to bring her on here today to talk about a really fascinating change in the application requirements for one of the medical schools, but it may translate to some of the other medical schools. Urvi, do you want to tell us what's going on with this change?
So, interestingly, and for all of us studying the GAMSAT and stressing about the GAMSAT, there's always this, I need to get a 70 or I need to get a 60 plus. But this might be good news for a lot of the GAMSAT students. The University of Wollongong has updated their admission requirements, and now their GAMSAT is just a huddle. So you don't need to get any glowing marks necessarily, as long as you meet the threshold of a 50 in all sections and a 50 overall, or more than a 50 overall. That's all they need. So they're not going to rank you based on your GAMSAT scores, your Section 1 scores, Section 2 scores. They're just going to say, yep, I've got a student with a 50 above, and happy to move on to the next part of the application cycle. So it's very interesting.
Very interesting. And they did this last year in 2024 for 2025 entry. And I was like, hang on a second, this is a big deal. Because it's always been GAMSAT's been the thing, GPA and GAMSAT, and they're both hurdles at Wollongong now. They've been the first and the only university to ever do that with the GAMSAT. None of them have followed yet. None of them have tried it in the past because they've always wanted to rank people based on their GAMSAT results. But University of Wollongong have gone, you know what? GAMSAT's not that important. We don't really care for GAMSAT. It's not important to us. Now, obviously, here we're going to be speculating a little bit here, and we're kind of having a bit of fun with it. But at the same time, it's interesting that they've made that. What do you reckon's going on there, Urvi?
It's very interesting because I think just reading the application requirements, they've put a lot of weight on CASPer and the bonuses, and then that really will determine, and you meeting the hurdles, that will determine whether you get an interview and then ultimately whether you get a spot. As a GAMSAT tutor, I personally feel like all this hard work, and I'd imagine all the students as well might feel like all this hard work, and now I could have just, not spent every single weekend studying. But I think at a deeper level, I think it comes down to the benefit of the GAMSAT at the end of the day in determining whether, one has a strong application. And there's pros and cons. Doing medicine, studying medicine, having been doing that for the past 3+ years, we all hear it as being a science. There's a science to it and there's an art to it. And the science is where the things like your academic skills and your problem solving and your critical thinking and your reasoning skills and how quickly you go through the content, all of that is the science of medicine. And then there's the art of medicine, which is essentially, your emotional intelligence, your social intelligence, problem solving, not necessarily academic problem solving, but more being street smart essentially, and being a good doctor to your patients. I think though, at the end of the day, when you're at the doctors, you want someone that has the perfect balance of the art and the science.
Yeah.
Taking the GAMSAT away as a big requirement, it feels like they've put a lot of weight on the art of being a doctor and the skills, the softer skills, the people skills that you need. But I don't know. What do you think, Tom?
That's an interesting point. So just to be kind of clear, they didn't just take away or create GAMSAT as a hurdle and GPA and do nothing else. They actually added 11 bonuses that you essentially, that's what they're looking for. So I'm just looking at our med school summary page, and I'm going to put a link to this in the show notes. So if you guys want to get the resources that we're talking about here, go to there'll be a link in the description of wherever you're listening or watching this. But so Wollongong, when you're applying for the University of Wollongong's medical school, and they're deciding who gets an interview, the way that they do it is that it's 50%. I'm just having a look here. So 50% admissions is the CASPer. Hang on, let me just make sure I'm getting this right here.
Yeah, no, I was just reading. There's like 50% CASPer and then 50% bonuses.
Bonuses.
Plus, if you've met the hurdles for GAMSAT and GPA minimum requirements, then that will determine whether you get an interview or not.
Yeah, so let's step this out, right? The first thing, you need to have a GAMP of over 50, just that, over 50, nothing more than that, they don't care. A GPA of over 5.5, is it? 5.5, yes, weighted. And then they don't care how much more above that it is. And then they're like, all right, now we get to the business end of it, CASPer. Now, if you don't know what CASPer is, it's we actually did a podcast on this, the previous one to this. So if you go to our podcast channel, you can kind of find it there where we go into depth on it. But essentially, it's a they call it a situational judgment test, where you go on a computer and they give you these different social and professional and ethical situations, and you've got to talk through how you would handle them. That's 50% of the interview, whether you're going to get an interview or not. And the other 50% are these bonuses, right? And so what are these bonuses? So there's 11 of them. And so I'm just going to go through them quickly, and you can get a sense of what they're after as to what they see as important here with these bonuses. So firstly, University of Wollongong first preference applicants. So people who have applicants who believe that. So they put University of Wollongong first. All right. So that's, if you put like that on its own, it's like, make us first, please. We want the best people. If you do, we'll benefit. We'll give you something in return, which is we'll give you a bonus point. Come on over. And obviously, we're having a bit of fun here, and full respect to the University of Wollongong and their application process. That it's a very good school, and we're just having a bit of fun here. So don't take it personally, guys. Bonus 2 is registered health professionals. So you're already registered with APRA, you're registered with APRA, so you're some kind of healthcare professional with APRA registration. Number 3 is a service commitment. So that you have, University of Wollongong believes that applicants who have shown a sustained commitment to service and demonstrate qualities of persistence, accountability, and professionalism are likely to succeed in medicine. Now, they have very specific details on what that means. You can go into that. So it's Australian state or national service organizations or applicants with 2 or more years full-time continuous service with state and national emergency services or military services, right? So you're getting a sense here of what they're after, right? Bonus 4, full-time work experience. So people who have worked before, full-time. Bonus 5, rural work experience. Bonus 6, rural high school education. Bonus 7, Illawarra local resident, MM1. So if you're from the area. Bonus 8, New South Wales rural resident, MM2 to 7. So if you're from the area, again, the wider area. Bonus 9, University of Wollongong graduate, and bonus 10, University of Wollongong graduate and academic excellence, and bonus 11, Indigenous health graduate. So if you were to kind of sum that up, they're looking at people who have worked, well, they've worked full-time, they've worked ideally in healthcare and ideally in the local area. And so that's kind of who it's really set up for, and that they're good with kind of social, ethical, professional situations. That's CASPer. So if you're a nurse or any other kind of healthcare professional from Wollongong or from the Wollongong area, even New South Wales, even rural, if you're working full time, man, Wollongong has got to be either your first or second preference, because then you've also got Deakin, which favors clinicians as well. So they've removed the GAMSAT as a big kind of cutoff important factor, but then they've really shifted towards, we want people who are experienced professionals who know how to do a job, and essentially they don't want to be training you up on how to do life and professional life and kind of how to be an adult in a working environment. They want people who kind of come preloaded with that, and then like, oh, the academics, yeah, we'll figure that out. we'll sort that out. But what do you think of that, Urvi?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to that system in a way, because I think people will be much more prepared for the workplace and even placement. I think navigating placement, a nurse on placement is very different to just a little med student on placement. As you said, they're preloaded with those skills. And in terms of the academic side of things, I think humans are also very adaptable, and I feel like as once people are in med school and through that system, the academics will eventually come, and I think it might be a bit harder to develop those skills initially, particularly, and it might be a lot more overwhelming if they haven't been preloaded with those skills with the GPA and GAMSAT. But that's not very difficult to learn either. I think UniMelb made the big move of removing prerequisites in terms of undergraduate degrees, and I've come across people in my cohort that have done arts and music and engineering and a range of degrees, and struggled initially for sure at the in the first years of medical school, but they all made it and they all graduated with me.
I think it really does, it affects that your science knowledge really just affects first year med. Like that's where it gets a bit tough for people who don't have a science background. But after that, if they can get through that, they can kind of adapt. And what's really the other thing to to kind of give Wollongong some credit here. And again, no disrespect to Wollongong, they're great. We've placed a lot of students there. Now, there have been a lot of studies done to look at, all right, what are the best predictors of success in a postgraduate medical degree, and then later, less done in terms of as doctors, but more so in medical school. And there have been multiple studies on this. And again, I'll put a link to a few of these in the notes. But the consistent result is that the single most the best indication is your undergraduate GPA. Right? It's not the GAMSAT. That if you look at that individual factors, so there have been 3 that have been studied extensively. So the GAMSAT score, your GPA, and the interview. And they find that individually speaking, GAMSAT's the worst indicator on its own. Interview's the second, and then GPA, undergraduate GPA, is the best. So they have that if it's above 5.5, you have what it takes. Essentially, that's what they're saying. You have the academics, the academic ability to get through this medical degree, to do well. And so we're okay with that. Now, just to go back on those studies, what they found is the best way, kind of predicting factor, is a combination of your undergraduate GPA and the interview. And GAMP again is just tends to be it's not the best. It's more like in combination they can be good kind of indicators. So looks like Wollongong, and again this is speculation, they probably sat down and go, all right, the GAMSAT, we don't really like that. So what else can we look at? We'll look at these studies. Let's kind of think through this. What's important here? And they've gone, you know what? They got the academics. GAMSAT, sure, we'll do that because everybody else is doing it. And so let's focus more on what really makes our doctors and our medical students pop. Is that ability to work with other people, work with their patients. And the academics will get through that. They're fine because they've got the GPA. The question,
honestly, I think just preparing. Oh, sorry.
No,
Just
go on.
preparing for like internships next year. Talking to doctors about what it takes to be a good intern as I start my journey next year. I've hardly heard anyone say you need to know all this medicine and you need to be on top of your lectures and know how to treat this and XYZ. It's always about what kind of person you are, whether you are someone that is able to get along with people, switched on, can prioritize. It's less about what you actually know once you start working, because once you start medical training, you're on a treadmill, and eventually, because you're in the system, you will get trained, and everyone will get trained, and everyone around is smart and will train you, and we'll all get there. But I think what makes a good doctor, what makes someone hire you, what makes someone give you a good reference is more so about, are you someone that's good to work with and skilled in all these other life areas.
I agree.
So,
And one of the things that they really talked a lot about at Notre Dame, Sydney, when I went through it, is your ability to learn, because they were saying by the time you've graduated, things will change. The knowledge will evolve, it'll get better. So you need to know how to find the information, how to learn, rather than have this all this stuff memorized, but rather be able to update your knowledge and evolve, and know when you need to learn something, know when you need to update your knowledge and your skills. And that was a really big thing that they really focused on, is being able to reflect upon your own abilities and go, all right, I need to actually learn, and then being able to proactively find that information rather than going, someone please help me or answer or teach me. Who do I plug into to be able to answer this? It's like, no, how do you proactively be able to do that and figure that stuff out? But the big question becomes, Urvi, is this the start of the end of GAMSAT? Is this a sign that the GAMSAT is dying?
Oh, I actually don't have an answer to that question. I think, though, there are obviously the bigger universities like University of Melbourne and Sydney, and those universities I feel like maybe put a lot more weight on things like the academics, including GPA and the GAMSAT. And maybe it might take longer for those universities to maybe change. But I think Wollongong is quite unique in that there is an opportunity to get lots of bonuses, particularly like rural bonuses, for example, that some of these other bigger universities can't really implement in their application process. But I do think, though, that this step might mean that in the near future, eventually, and obviously, like it will come down to the quality of graduates and things like that. But eventually, universities might just go and say that, look, as long as you meet the hurdle, then we can put a lot more weight on all these other things.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, yes, this is the start of the end of GAMSAT. I was thinking that too. I was like, right, this is a big deal, because you only need one medical school to kind of break the mold and start heading down that path. And I'm sure that Wollongong are tracking, and they're doing studies on this. There might even be a study that comes out based on their results in a couple of years. And then if they show positive results, saying, "Hey, our graduates do far better on these different metrics," Notre Dame might follow, because they're kind of similar. Notre Dame and Wollongong, they kind of do similar things with the CASPer, etc. With the application, with the portfolio. They both scrapped the portfolio in the last couple of years. So maybe Notre Dame will follow then, and then maybe the University of Queensland, because I know Notre Dame and Queensland, UQ are kind of linked in many ways. So it might not be immediate. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 3 years. But down the track, it could be a sign that the GAMS is reaching its natural end.
Why does it make me sad about that? It's the one exam that I keep complaining about, and now it sort of breaks my heart that it's not going to be there anymore. Potentially.
Well, you'll be long gone by then, Urvi. You'll be in the residence, or looking at training programs, or on a training program at that point. You'll long have forgotten about GAMSAT. It'll be more Dr. Tom and his and the other tutors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the general theme, though, over the past few years after COVID, really, is that things are there's fewer and fewer hoops to jump through, and it's getting slightly more easier, I don't know, I guess this maybe get into med school, but also what's happening after medical school, particularly like for us, for example, it's the merit-based system is now disappeared. The Z scores disappeared when it came to, picking interns and things.
Right.
So I wonder whether all of that is just part of building doctors that are a lot more emotionally, socially capable and resilient.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. So a few years ago, I was on just this kind of a random story. I was on on safari in South Africa with Sir Richard Branson, which was an incredible experience, a once in a lifetime kind of a thing, which was really cool. And we're sitting at dinner, and I'm sitting next to him, and he's having a chat on this side, I'm having a chat on this side, and he taps me on the shoulder and he says, "Tom, it's a bad time to be a doctor." And I turn around, I'm like, "What?" And he goes, he just invested in a startup in Africa where they're giving iPads to nurses, who then kind of go through kind of this selection criteria and prescribe medications and do a lot of the kind of treatments based on that. And I'm like, but that doesn't replace a doctor. Like, that's maybe in Africa where they don't have anything, that's a step up to remote areas of Africa, to step up from that. But you can't replace doctors. And he was we're going to this debate, and he's like, "No, eventually it's going to be AI or robots, and doctors will be more like kind of empathetic social workers, kind of an angle where a lot of the diagnostic and the intellectual stuff will be done by robots and AI, and the people will be doing more of the peopling." And he got really, really heated about that. I was like, "Okay, cool." His daughter is a doctor as well, and so that could be, a sign of where things are going. There's a lot of AI coming into different diagnostic work in medicine, so potentially, Wollongong, maybe they're thinking a few years ahead of the rest of us here, and seeing, hey, how do we position our graduates to be successful in this changing environment?
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing, though, is obviously this might be good news to a lot of students sitting for the GAMSAT and just scratching their heads every night. But I guess in terms of the application process, obviously, because Wollongong is the only university that has made that a hurdle, I guess students still have to work hard for all their other preferences.
Yeah,
so
no,
it's
definitely,
a bit of
I guess we're not saying that, hey, stop studying for the GAMSAT. Like, don't worry about the GAMSAT. Like, you still need it if you want to get in the next 3-5 years. You need GAMSAT, and even for Wollongong, right? Getting over 50, for some people, it's not a walk in the park. You still need to do some study and there are, like you said, Urvi, all the other medical schools which still rank you based on GAMS for interviews, and it's involved in post interviews as well. Interestingly enough, let me just have a quick confirmation of this. But Notre Dame, as I said, that they work very closely. They kind of work closely with Wollongong. So for there to get an interview there, they still Notre Dame look at 30% of your ranking is unweighted GAMSAT, 30% is your weighted GPA, 30% is your CASPer, and then 10% of the bonuses. And then after the interview, when they decide who gets an offer, it's 50% interview and then 50% all those other things. So GAMSAT kind of falls in terms of importance after the interview. But for the other medical schools, I mean, Monash doesn't really do GAMSAT, but Monash is all on its own there. They only really look at their own medicals, their own graduates. And then the other schools, it's pretty much 50-50. GPA, whether weighted or unweighted, and then GAMSAT. So have a quick look at our med school summary. So we've got this med school summary page, which has all the medical schools' entry requirements, the cutoff scores, all that stuff side by side in a table, which I'll drop into the notes. All right. So when do you reckon GAMSAT will be out, Urvi? How do we plan our exit from Thank Flip GAMSAT and transition to Thank Flip social skills?
Yeah. If I had to make a guess, if I had to give a number, I'd probably say 5 years.
5 years? Okay, cool.
I think 5 years, all universities will. I don't even know whether all universities would drop it forever. But
no, I don't think they will. But I wouldn't be surprised if they had put a smaller emphasis on it. It probably depends on the medical schools and what they see as important. The ones that are like, hey, we're really research heavy, they're gonna probably keep a lot of that GAMSAT academic stuff, and then the other ones that are more kind of, hey, we're really, really keen on clinicians and clinical work and that kind of stuff, they'll probably move away from GAMSAT. It'll be slow. And like you said earlier, Wollongong is a smaller school, so are the Notre Dames, and so they can pivot, they can adjust, they can test things. And then you've got the bigger ones like UQ, Melbourne, Sydney. They're going to be a bit slower on the movements. They're much bigger, and that's kind of they'll probably be later if they reduce the importance of GAMSAT. They'll be down the track. Cool. So then, Urvi, what's happening? So you're, as we were saying earlier, you're in fourth year. You're in Melbourne. What's life looking like for you in terms of medicine and the next year? What are you doing now? What are you planning for? What's going to be happening in the next year?
Yeah, so I am at peak time of internship applications. They opened up last Tuesday across the nation. So I'm putting in my applications, thinking about what hospitals I want to work at, particularly looking at what rotations I want to do. I still have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. I think we've ticked the doctor part, but then there's a lot more to it, as you will realize. But I think, at least for me, the next year, hopefully I think wherever I end up, it's not going to make a huge difference to what I'll get out of the experience. But hopefully end up in a good location, have a good intern-year experience, do the rotations that I'm interested in. And then obviously start thinking more and more about where I want to end up in terms of training and what pathways and things like that. So it is I feel like I'm very in a similar position to a lot of you right now, thinking about internships. I mean, med school and where to go and all these things, because there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of things out of your control sometimes. But it's just fingers crossed, toes crossed, hope for the best.
Yeah, and look, I just so everyone knows, you've won a bunch of awards through medical school. Like you're brilliant at it, and you're still kind of not sure. So that's normal, right? It's not a bad thing. It's because as you go through your degree, you're exposed to all these different areas of medicine, and you're like, oh, I really don't like that one, or I love that one, but except for this bit, and oh, I love these 3, or I hate these 4, or whatever it is, then okay, where do I go from here? And yeah,
Sometimes
so
the
now
problem is liking too much.
Yeah, okay. And so do you have a few areas that you really love?
Yeah, I am really interested in my top 3 at the moment are cardiology, obstetrics, gynae, and pediatrics. And the unfortunate thing is they all have different training pathways. So I can't just go down one training pathway. And if cardiology doesn't work out, I can do gastro or neuro. It's more like if
Okay.
cardio doesn't work out, I have to backtrack and restart. So I
Yeah.
think the important thing is just taking my time with it. There's no real rush because these are
No.
big decisions and lifelong decisions.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Urvi. Thanks for having a chat and doing a bit of speculation and having a bit of fun, but also explaining how this process works. So if you guys have any questions about your applications, you can reach out to us. We have a lot coming up for the application process because it is that time of the year now. Like I said, last time we ran the CASPer podcast, so you can listen to that. We have the CASPer training program at ThankFlip. We have an applications boot camp to help you get your clear on your applications. We have the interview boot camp to help you prepare for the interviews and nail those. We had an incredible result last year with every boot camper who got an interview getting into a medical school, which was fantastic. Some of them got multiple offers, which is great. And then we've got the GAMSAT bootcamp for those who are doing the GAMSATs in September or even March. But thank you again, Urvi, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, I have a cool gift for you, just for listening to the Nurses Doing GAMSAT podcast. We do some of our best work in our Facebook group called, you guessed it, Nurses Doing GAMSAT. It's free to join, and every day we're sharing actionable guides, tips and tricks, and really just how to smash the exam and get into medicine. You can join today by searching Nurses Doing GAMSAT on Facebook. Thanks for listening to another episode, and I'll see you next time.